Good evening and welcome to the December 5th, 2016 meeting of the Merrimack School Board. If you could rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we're on to item number 2, which is public participation. If anyone would like to speak under public participation, please come to the mic and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one exercising that, we will go on to item number 3, which is the overview of the school district's Title I grant, including information about assurances regarding homeless students and students in foster care. I welcome to the table Susan Lures and Jody Hanley, and thank you for coming.
Oh, brighter green light. There we are. Thank you, and I'm very proud to be a project manager for Title I in Merrimack. Our program is a supplementary tutoring program for grades 1 through 8, and we currently employ 23 Title I tutors who are certified teachers. They provide reading and or math intervention to more than 500 students. Title I students receive an extra half hour of direct instruction 4 days a week. The small group tutoring sessions are offered to students who need to accelerate their learning in order to meet grade level expectations. The guided instruction and extra practice is designed to close their achievement gaps. We use the Fountas and Pinnell Leveled Literacy Intervention Program for reading levels A through Z. And for math, we use a combination of hands-on material and educational software to address specific math skills. According to the feedback I receive as project manager, Title I instruction is highly valued by administrators, language arts coordinators, classroom teachers, and parents. In addition to the pre- and post-assessment data showing the gains made by the students, I'm always pleased to hear the stories that teachers and parents tell. Primarily, number 1, the students like coming to Title I tutoring. Number 2, the instructional materials are high quality and the leveled take-home practice books immediately reinforce the daily lessons and involve the parents. Number 3, students enjoy reading for pleasure more because they're struggling less. And number 4, students feel more confident in their skills, thus participate more in the classroom. Title I, which has existed since 1965 under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, is periodically reauthorized by Congress. This year, the 2016-17 school year, is a transition year due to the recent reauthorization from No Child Left Behind to the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is also called ESSA. Most changes will start with the 2017-18 school year, but one in particular is happening now. It's in regard to Title I's responsibility to coordinate with the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. Title I, under No Child Left Behind, has had the responsibility of assuring that homeless children have educational stability, including first priority for Title I, along with other services that Jody Hanley will explain. Jody and I track the homeless students in our district, and we coordinate to get what the students need with the Title I funding. Now, under Title I with ESSA, it requires that we also track students in foster care to assure that their educational stability is there. According to the guidance from the U.S. Department of Education, studies find that children in foster care are much more likely than their peers to struggle academically and fall behind in school, particularly because of unplanned school changes. The intent is to improve educational outcomes for these children. The new foster care provisions of Title I emphasize the importance of collaboration and joint decision-making between child welfare agencies and educational agencies. So it was necessary to name a district foster care point of contact for child welfare agencies to work with. Our district has selected Stacy Conti from our special education department, who will be taking on that role of point of contact. and Jody will be working with Stacy and the foster families to coordinate the services.
And Stacy, hi, thank you for having me again. Stacy and I've only spoken a few times trying to figure out I'm sorry. Stacy and I have spoken just a few times since this new provision had taken place, just to try and figure out what our roles will be. And I think it's more right now just collaborating to make sure any kids identified as foster kids get everything they need to meet their needs educationally, emotionally. Not quite sure what that is yet. Depends. There's probably one student that we've been working with. But it's nice because she's so easy to get in touch with, and we just email back and forth, and it's kind of seems like a good transition for me to kind of help her. And whether it could be maybe one email a month or one a day, but it's just nice to be, that's a lot on her plate. So I'm kind of happy to be with her in that position. Under the McKinney-Vento, just to refresh your memories, the term homeless children and youth means individuals who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. I continue to work with all school staff to identify homeless in our district and ensure they have access to all programs and services to which they are eligible, so that they will succeed in school, all while addressing the needs of their parents as well, which I think is sometimes more challenging than those of the kids. Right now we have 21 identified. I always say I think there's more that I just don't know about. We have 9 at the high school, 3 at the middle school, 5 at J Muse, 2 at Reed's Ferry, 1 at Thornton's, and 1 at MES. I feel that as time goes on, I think I say this, that the school district just gets more on board and more understanding and more wanting to collaborate, but it's just so refreshing that people just, it could be the people in the food service or a principal or a guidance counselor or a past teacher, people just so readily feel comfortable calling or shooting me an email, but sometimes with such uncertainty of not knowing, but I admire the fact that the people in this district, and I say it all the time, the staff in this district is amazing. They are just, they love these kids, they embrace these kids with so much support and compassion and want to do so much for them. It just warms my heart to say, hey, not sure, Jody, but can you check this out? So I think that there's more contact with me from the district, not knowing, if these kids are homeless. So what I'll do is I'll make a phone call to the family. Usually it's, someone may find out that there's a child doubled up. So then I call and say, okay, what's the history there? Why are they doubled up? And what I'm finding now, it's not always just about somebody in poverty or somebody struggling financially. There's so many families that are just living in very unhealthy situations, domestic violence for one thing, and that they really don't have a choice but to leave. So they may not be, really struggling too much financially, but then they leave and they have to end up in a situation that they're doubled up. They're living in a basement. They're sleeping on a cot, and there's 4 of them sharing a small room. So I've kind of learned more over the years to really reword my questions, trying to figure out, okay, well, they're doubling up, but they have a whole half of the house versus another family who's doubled up and lives in the basement. So the Department of Education always says, we leave it up to you. You make the decision, which I don't always like to do, but I will call them for some guidance. And I think, as I had said, I think that there's more kids that are not identified. I'm not quite sure, the reason for that. I definitely feel that there's more families out there willing to, kind of put their pride aside and actually just unload everything on me, which is fine, but about their kids, about their own life. But again, I think it's the parents themselves struggling even more so than these kids that are identified. So I find that actually a lot of my work is more with the parents than the kids, is trying to help them, like, how can we get you emotionally and financially stable so then, you can be a better mom or a better dad. But again, as I have said in the past, the things that first and foremost we make sure after these kids are identified, it takes lengthy conversation between me and a parent or parents or grandmother, whoever they're living with, just to make sure that they can kind of come under that title of homelessness. Make sure they have free lunch. Oftentimes, actually, I get the names from food service because they have to check off in a box if they're doubled up or living with somebody, and then they'll call me and just say, hey, it might be a homeless situation. I always let families know we have money allotted for school clothes and school supplies, and Other things that we can, what can we help your student in school? Do they need a calculator? What do they need to succeed in school? Field trips, school pictures are a big thing. I know the older the kids get, the more expensive these projects are in school. So families will call me, say, "Hi, I need help. School pictures this week." Sometimes it's from a school, so-and-so need your help. We have school pictures to help out with the Washington, D.C. trip, which is huge, because I know that's a huge chunk of money right there for these families. And let me see, what else did I... Oh, and the collaboration with other agencies that I've done, probably, just in this year's, I'll just list them off. And this is, again, an effort to provide these families with resources, whatever they, hey, I need some dental service, or how can, I need a physical, and I don't have insurance, or things like that. But Lamprey Healthcare, Easter Seals, Greater Nashua Dental Connection, Nashua Soup Kitchen, the Wentworth Place. Was this the third year in a row? Third year in a row, they gave us a nice donation. This group of older folks in the community, they're lovely. And what's nice, it's a cash donation, and we don't have money for food, for groceries, or for gas cards. So that's what I take that and I use that on. The food pantries, YMCA, Bridges, domestic violence, the Domestic Violence Support Agency, New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic Violence, DCYF, the Lion and the Lioness Club for coats. We did a coat drive this year, eyeglasses, and then Caring Hands Transportation to make sure kids that want to stay in their school of origin get the transportation. I think this year so far haven't really had to, that can get a little sticky, but haven't had to deal with that much. Are there any specific questions I can answer for anybody? It's kind of there's a lot of pieces I do, so sometimes it's hard just to say, well, this is what I do, because it changes, on a given day. So
I know we have some unfamiliar faces to you from the board, so I will definitely put it out there. Are there questions or comments from the board regarding homeless services? And anything about Title I questions as well. So seeing none, I would say a couple. And that is with Title I. You talk about take-home practice books, and how are they different from the books that they would have in school? Are they supplemental? Is it through the same programs that we use, but they're designed for Title I?
Yes, they're part of the Level Literacy Intervention Program, and they're actually paper copies of the books the children have read with the tutor in school. So they have practiced them with the tutor, and then they take them home and read them to their family. And they have a little bit of confidence at that point to be able to, reread it with the family. But it is extra practice, and then they come back to the school, and the book is reread again. But it's a way to involve the parents. The parents see every day what the children are reading, and they can see the improvement.
Excellent. And that was my one question, because the other one was just notes. Are there any other questions? Zeb? Owen.
So you explained how you have the number of students on this program have been increasing, but you still think that there are some that are missing that could potentially be classified. Is there anything that's being done to expand the search for these kids, or are we more waiting for them to come to you guys?
I think what happens is sometimes I think it's education of the staff. That's, whether it's turnover or people still probably maybe don't know why. My position is actually, it's like such a little number of hours during the week, although it's been like 14 years, it's still, and I'm not physically in the district, because there's really, unless there's a meeting or, to me, there's not a need for me to be. I think, between maybe staff turnover, just folks not knowing that I exist, that there's a liaison in the district. But like, for example, I'll get an email about, so this person's been doubling up, and it's, they've been there for 6 months. So I don't know why that information didn't make it to me 6 months ago when that transition first happened. Or I'll be working with a student, and I also have a daughter. So I think it's just, that is such a great question. But again, I think it's just that the information, for multiple reasons, is not getting it to me. But it's actually made me grow in my job, because I know specific, like when I first get a name, I've changed questions, I've rephrased things so I can get that information. But I think I would say I think it's probably more high school kids that we don't know about, because there's so many that couch surf, and I think of my own high schooler. Would anybody know if he was living someplace else, going from couch to, maybe not, unless there was something, behavioral issue or whatever. But I think there's probably a lot of high school kids out there that, for whatever reason, are not living with a parent or a guardian and are living on someone's couch, and there's staff that just don't know that. I think there has to be other needs that present themselves, like a mental health need, and they go to the guidance counselor, and then after asking some questions, oh, so you've been living on Johnny's couch for a while, and then they'll call me. So I don't think I think it's just, again, it's just a lack of information, not for anybody's fault, but maybe I think there's kids and families that don't share that information as well, so.
Okay, Marge, then Michael.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, I'm sorry. And
Go ahead.
there are, thank you. We do have posters too that there's one that is for parents of being in a homeless situation, and one specifically for unaccompanied youth, which is the older, the kids at the high school. We do have posters around too with my cell phone on it. So
I'll go Michael, then Marge, actually.
Thank you for coming in. Definitely appreciate the overview. I think one of the big things for me is that it might be the word that's used too. It's the homelessness. It's I think that it was very good to get this packet and actually be able to read over that it is the displaced. It's not necessarily that they're without a place to stay. They're just displaced and not having that solid ground and foundation. I think that's one of the big things that might be just misunderstood maybe also. I mean, for me it was, obviously, when I started reading the information, but just getting that information out to you might be helpful.
I will say thank you because then it makes me think of something else. I've also learned over the years, when I reach out to a family, when I get a family's name, I will always say, if it's a guidance counselor, okay, they know you, would they prefer a call from you and say, here's Jody's phone number, or are they okay getting a call from me? So I always ask somebody to ask that, because I don't want to blindly call somebody. So I actually have learned don't call and say I'm the homeless liaison. I say I'm a social worker and I work with families in transitional living. And then after, a few moments of speaking, I will say, this is my title, so if you hear it, but let me explain what that definition means. So that's a great question, because I used to just call and say I'm the homeless liaison, and they're like, I'm not. But even now, you think, before I started this job, you're right, I'd think, well, that must mean they're like kind of living under a bridge. But there are so many definitions of it, so thank you for bringing that up.
So it's time for me to pass out 2 compliments. So the first is to Jody. She has been our only homeless liaison, our coordinator, since the beginning of the knowledge of the McKinty-Vento Act. And I think we're very fortunate in our district to have had her all of this time. She has been a consistent force, and she does have a background in social work. And so you can see the difference it makes in just the conversation and in developing a wonderful relationship with a family, which goes on beyond the initial need. It's like a partnership, I think, that really blooms. And also the acquisition of all these partners. Some of these groups we had no affiliation with, so through her work, we've gained more partners. And we just went through an audit from the Department of Education, and one of the requirements is that the auditor needs to sit with Mark and me to talk about the program as a whole. Before we started and got into any specificity or nuance or whatever, the first was about the talent of Susan Luers and how she put together all the parts of the audit. It was seamless, took a tremendous amount of planning. And Susan, again, is one of the senior-most members in the South Central region. So the State Department relies on her, as well as all of her role-alikes in the South Central region. So we are fortunate twice over.
Excellent. And we definitely have seen you year over year, and you always come with fresh and new data for us. I think it's my 7th year on the board, and I always, I get a fresh look at where this is going and the resources that you're taking on. So we definitely have seen the growth in your roles and how it's benefited the district. So thank you very much for all you do and coming and teaching us about what's going on every day in your work. So if there are no other questions or comments from the board, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're on to item number 4, which is an oldie but a goodie. It's the third review of the new school board policy, service animals, with Mark.
Thank you. So after our last meeting, I was in touch again with Attorney Christina from the School Boards Association. And what you have in front of you tonight is a version of the policy that was revised based on questions raised by the board at the last board meeting. And what I did was I tried to summarize for Attorney Christina the questions that the board raised. And so in your packet are the questions and then his answers. And what I thought I might do is just briefly read the question and then his answer for the benefit of the public as well. And then happy to take any questions you have. So the first question is, should student or employee's disability be replaced with individual? And the answer is yes, that is acceptable. Pertinent federal law does refer to individual and does not limit the scope of this law to students and or employees. So I would elaborate just a little bit and say that he was very clear that that the board should see this policy as pertaining to anybody who would come to the district for any reason at any time, or whether it's regular or sporadic. Second question is, board asks about regular volunteers and whether they should be covered under this policy as opposed to the occasional volunteer. And the answer is, replacing all references to students or employees with individuals or persons would clarify the board's intent to be clear that this policy applies to all persons on school grounds, parents, staff, visitors, students, etc. So if I would just draw your attention to the policy itself, particularly if you look at page 3, rather 2 of 3, what we've done is highlighted for you where we have replaced either the term school or employee with the term individual. And so there are 4 places on page 2 where that has happened in response to Attorney Christina's reply. Question 3, this wasn't really the board's question so much as a summary of a conversation that I believed we had. So can the district deny access to any individual who does not have the proper veterinary records? And the answer is, pertinent federal law states that a public entity shall not require documentation such as proof that the animal has been certified, trained, or licensed as a service animal. Generally, a public entity may not make these inquiries about a service animal when it is readily apparent that an animal is trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. For example, the dog is observed guiding an individual who is blind or has low vision, pulling a person's wheelchair, or providing assistance with stability or balance to an individual with an observable mobility disability. And then the board asks if policy should require that the animal owner produce some kind of standard certificate indicating the dog has been trained and is immunized. And the answer is, as noted above, federal law states the school district shall not require documentation relative to whether or not the animal has been trained as a, quote, service animal. However, the law is silent as to immunization records. If the service animal will be on school grounds regularly, the animal is needed by a student or staff member, then requesting, and he made a point of the distinction between requesting and requiring, requesting this information would be helpful, especially in an emergency. This is Attorney Christina speaking, I would not recommend requesting or requiring this if the animal is on school grounds on a limited or non-recurring basis, for example, a one-time visitor. And then on the last page of the document, you just see pertinent provisions of federal law that support Attorney Christina's answers. So I'm happy to address any questions you have or comments, and there you go.
Is there any feedback based upon the edits that were made in the feedback that we got from Attorney Christina? Andy?
Actually, I like the policy the way it's written is good, but there's a lot of things that he gave in his sort of conversation in here around veterinary records, and we shouldn't question, the entity can't question the service animal. there have been cases that I've come across over the years where people have called animals service animals that in fact weren't, and they were brought along for nonsense. Is there any, in your conversations, I don't want you to go research, in conversations, has that ever come up in terms of an animal that's being passed as a service animal that isn't, and whether the district or a school is able to question that as to whether it's a valid service animal?
So that hasn't come up recently in conversations that I've had with him because they've been pertaining to the questions that that the board asked. But if you just give me a minute, I thought that there was. Just pardon me for 1 minute.
I think it's now that I'm looking at section F on what you attached. Make 2 inquiries to determine whether an animal qualifies as a service animal.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry. Could you just point that? I knew there was
So
some.
the very last page of what you get.
Yes.
When you quoted the federal law.
Oh, yes. I knew that it was somewhere. Generally, a public entity. Oh, I think I just read the. A public entity may ask if the animal is required because of a disability and what work or task the animal has been trained to perform. A public entity shall not require documentation such as proof that the animal has been certified. So, right. So, I think what he was saying is that, for instance, if I think the example that you're asking is there are some occasions where perhaps a student would prefer to have an animal with them because it's a comfort or something like that. And if that wouldn't be defined as a service animal or wouldn't be a stipulation in an IEP, in those cases, the law would allow the district to ask more about whether there's any clinical need for such an animal and then could exercise its privilege to deny. So, yes, there is that and that. Thank you for pointing that out. I knew it was somewhere. Yep.
Cindy, is your hand up?
Maybe not.
It didn't feel like a strong. It did not feel like a strong raise of the hand. So with the edits, with the vetting, with Attorney Christina, do we feel comfortable putting this on consent and approving it at our next meeting? I think we got the green light from the board, so you'll see this on consent. If for any reason between now and the next board meeting you find you wanted to air some additional questions or concerns, we can pull this off consent and rediscuss. But if not, we will plan to have it on consent. Excellent. And now we're on to item number 5, which is the overview of the proposed 2017-2018 school district budget.
Thank you. So I want to start off, as I want to do, and focus on process first, because I think it's just so important to share with you that we really began working on this budget back in September. The administration has had numerous conversations. Matt and Mark and I have gone on site to each of the schools at least twice. To see either items they wanted to point out or just have rich discussions. You know that we use all the plans that the board has approved, from the capital improvement plan to the technology plan, our logic model. The board's budget message is terribly important as well, and we take that message and take it to the leadership team and literally go through it paragraph by paragraph to see what is of major concern for all of you. So I am very hopeful as you look at this budget that it will reflect those conversations that we've had with you as well, because I think this year we've probably had more dialogue, especially about projects in the capital improvement plan, than we have had in the past. And I believe that one of the things that you've said very loudly is that you want our public, the taxpayers, to really have more information than they've had in the past, and for us to try and publicize that. So as we go along, I'm very hopeful that we can get this information out so people will be well informed before March. So we normally start off talking about what are some possible warrant articles. That will be one of the items that you deal with at the end of the budget process. And one of the ones that you highlighted was asbestos abatement in a specified section of Merrimack High School. That's something you're very interested in having the public weigh in on. When we got away from the table, Matt and Tom Tuso and I began to look a little closer at the cut list, and we see something that's on the cut list that might in fact be appropriate to tie to this particular project, and that is at the high school in the Family and Consumer Science room. There are some very old cabinets. When I say very old, they were put in 1977. And so they really need to be replaced, and we've had them on the cut list for the last couple of years. So it's the cabinets and the countertops. We think more than likely when you go to pull those cabinets out, there's a good chance there'll be asbestos underneath that. And given the fact that it's in the same section as the asbestos abatement that's projected to be done, we're asking you in your deliberation to fuse perhaps those two projects together. So the asbestos abatement project itself is estimated right now to be $265,000, and the cabinet countertop replacement is $45,000. So if you put those two together, you will see the overall project would be $310,000. We will provide you with photos, and if you want to go and see the area, we'd be happy to have that done. But that, to me, is a worthy discussion. The other warrant articles that you have talked about looking at have to do with paving. Again, paving is something that definitely we all want to address. And one of the biggest concerns, or bigger concern I would say, is the paving around Merrimack High School. And again, that would be something I'd say everyone that wants to know what's that all about should just drive around the high school. So obviously it includes the bus loop, which is the front, the back, and the sides of the building, and clearly you can see the potholes, you can see the erosion of the pavement on its sides, and you can see a lot of patching. That project is $196,174. The other segment of paving has to do with O'Gara Drive, whether to do that from the end of the bus loop, if you will, down to Babusick Lake. And in my text, I say to you, I know that is something that you're thinking the public might weigh in on. I would ask you to also consider, might it be done when you take a look at a new SAU office, which is to be the next year? It would have the adjoining parking lot, and it would just seem, again, to us as we deliberate, that that might be bundled all together and be one massive project. So I commend it to you for your thinking. That particular effort, if it stood alone right now, would be $186,844. All of this will be obviously in your book. I'm just giving you the overview and telling the public what we have there. The next section I want to talk about is enrollment. This is very interesting to me this year in working on enrollment and in working with the demographic specialist and the information service specialist, both at NESDAQ and the New Hampshire School Boards Association. We seem to be having less decline than we've had in the past. Overall, I'm projecting that there will be minus 24 students. And remember, before we've been into 3 digits. So let me tell you that we're going to have minus 18 at the upper elementary school, minus 18 students, minus 19 at the middle, minus 7 at the high school. And so in looking back just at those numbers, I'm not recommending that we do anything at the high school. We just, pardon me?
Will the numbers go up at the elementary school a little bit? Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to do the pluses after I do the minuses.
Okay. I
Yeah.
was like, it wasn't adding up.
No, you hold me to it. So I'm not recommending that we do anything at the high school. We just stay put. And the middle school, it crosses over in the grades, so I'm just saying hold there. Down the line, we'll be taking a look at the elimination of a team, but not for another year. And at the upper elementary, you'll see that I'm going to do some transferring. I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. At the elementary level, which would be the K through 4, and I say just K through 4 in this purpose, for this purpose, it's a +9. And then when you put the preschool population with out-of-district placement, we're going to gain +11. So when you do those numbers, that's how you get the -24. The preschool, we see really going forward, now that we've got preschool in each of the 3 buildings, that's very appealing to people because it's in the neighborhood school. So we think that that will really continue to increase a little. So at the elementary level, you know how hard the principals and I strive to have equal or equity in student-teacher ratio for all of the grade levels. We work across the board, we work together as a unit, and we try and make that happen. So what I'm proposing is that we take 2 fifth-grade teaching positions, and we transfer those teaching positions, one to Reeds Ferry and one to Thorntons Ferry. What that does at the upper elementary is the student-teacher ratio will be 25 or 26 to 1, which is standard. We've had that for many years. And it will help us at the 4th grade level where we have a bump, and you'll see that. And then when we look at the incoming kindergarten, in order to have this equity that I talk about, we really need to look at adding a 0.5 kindergarten teaching position. And when you look at my chart for the 3 schools, you'll see the balance in student-teacher ratio across. We're seeming to be pretty settled. Although we're having this slight decline, another personnel issue I want to put before you is in the support staff area. Tom Tuso, over the last probably 3 or 4 years, has requested an additional groundskeeper to aid in all of the work that needs to be done. And I'm talking about the fact that just to meet demand with grass cutting, sports field maintenance, snow removal on sidewalks. And what's happening is we're having to pull other workers to do that work when we really need the help. But I have said no for the last 3 or 4 years. And this year, when we began to hear from our public, it was enough of a concern that I thought that we would start out by going for a half-time position. That half-time position would cost $20,266 because it doesn't have the benefits attached to it. When Tom Tuso comes before you, he will talk about this particular position and why it has so much meaning to his department. So that gives you kind of a lightly once-over piece on personnel. One of the things that you should feel gratified about is the budget represents the fact that you have all of your major contracts intact for next year. So that the Merrimack Educational Support Staff Association, the numbers in the budget will be the 3rd year of a 3-year agreement. The Merrimack Teachers Association will be the 2nd year of a 3rd-year agreement, and the building administrators and directors, it will be a 3rd year of a 3-year agreement. To have all of that put in your budget and not be in the midst of negotiation is something we haven't seen for a while. So I think that is pleasing. For employee benefits, we've been told, and Matt shared with you, that our guaranteed maximum rate for health insurance is 9%. What he has also shared with you is that employees are choosing to migrate to other plans. And when they do that, that very much helps us with overall cost. So right now, we're estimating that the health increase will be $113,959. And of course, we'll get our final rate increase as spring comes. New Hampshire retirement is considered to be a big-ticket item. The rate for the professional staff is up 10.8%. And for classified staff, it's up 2%. And so when you look in that overview, you will see that New Hampshire retirement is considered to be a major item. Under classroom instructional focus, one of the things that we did for you in the budget is to put an asterisk by every item that was cut in this year's budget or that was deferred in the 2016-17 budget. So you'll have a sense of what was lost. You remember we had the massive page of $800 and some $1,000 worth of cuts, but we wanted to try and have some way of having you see that clearly. So you will see it either by a specific item, or you will see it by a proposed amount, and it will say something like 15,000 of the 45,000 was deferred in the 2016-2017 budget. So one of the most important things for all of the buildings, this is the 6 buildings, is the restoration of the furniture plan. Because we were going right along, right? And we were doing students' desks and chairs and bookcases and computer tables and lab stools, and we just had to stop it. We took it all out. So you will see that they didn't go forward for additional. They just want restored what was lost in 16-17. That will be true of other items that would be pertinent to instruction in the music area, in the art area, because we took those items away too, especially if there were additional equipment. In technology, library, media, Director Rose was very helpful to us last year when we need to look at those cuts, and the document cameras got taken out, and the interactive white boards and the some software licensing got taken. We have asterisks by all of those. Again, just to bring it back, to make it whole. One of the things that I think you'll be very pleased about is that Mark has worked closely with the district math committee. You saw the group come before you, Marcia and Nick, and they have been working arduously on finding a new text and corresponding set of materials for our students for the future. So we want to do the implementation of a math, new textbooks for grades kindergarten through 8. And as we go through the process, Mark will talk to you about especially the methodology that's being used to make the selection. And you remember when the math committee came before you, you had some suggestions about how it might operate as well. Those will be incorporated. But the thing is, instead of doing a math implementation where you do just a few grades, we really want to do the whole of K through 8. We think that makes the most sense. So you'll find that in the instructional focus. Under special services, Director Fabrizio will come forward, and his particular segment of the budget is up 3.5%. It is due predominantly to, I would say, 4 areas. I'm going to highlight 4 areas for you. One is the increase in psychological testing and consultation. You remember when we were talking about the mental health plan coming forward, Julie DeLuca, the chair, and John were talking in terms of this year really wouldn't be the year that they were going to ask so much in the budget. It was more doing training and that kind of thing. But this particular area is very important to us. It has been in the budget. We've just increased it. And we think as we address students' needs, this is an area that we just need to put more resource to it. And he will speak about that to you. Also, John gave up some equipment last year, and we have students who need to have a particular climate control because they have respiratory issues. That's a part of their IEP. So we go for split air conditioning systems. You know, if you don't have a building that's completely air conditioned, then you need to come up with something. So each one of those split systems is $15,000, and he's asking for $45,000 to take care of 3. One of those was cut. You'll see the asterisk. We are needing to have a new vendor for transportation. The contract has come to an end. Matt has already begun the process to do an RFP, and in doing that, we know that we are going to have a percentage increase, and we're planning on 7% to make sure that we can cover the cost.
And Marge, this is just special education.
This is just
transfer.
special ed.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yep. And we also, if you don't know it, have 2 district-owned vans that we use for special ed students to travel to their job sites and to other project-based places that they need to go. Believe it or not, these vans, so the one that we're talking about is 10 years old. It's got over 100,000 miles, and so we want to replace one of them. We figure that this year, just because we're looking at everything, 1 out of 2 is what we're proposing to do. So those are the 4 major items for special services. And to the point that Shannon just raised, for the Student Transportation of America, for our general ed students, that is already a part of our given contract. It goes up 3.25%, and so it's $75,501 more than we're spending this year. Lastly, in my overview for you comes maintenance. I think you know the capital improvement plan well enough. You could probably say it back to me, but the 4 major items that we have in the operating budget are first the ventilation system and heat system, the HVAC unit on the roof of the high school, which we deferred this year. That is $539,827. As you know, we have already helped to put one part of it back together again, and so we're very hopeful we can get through the year. The second costly item is the roof at Thornton's Ferry. Again, we showed you what sections of that need to be replaced. That is $612,825. And then most recently, you have focused on the need to really take a look at 2 sidewalks. Specifically, the sidewalk at the middle school definitely needs to be replaced. It is just deteriorating at a very rapid rate. That sidewalk to be replaced will be $98,660. And Merrimack High School's sidewalk needs to be repaired, and that's $55,000. Those are both what we consider to have safety potential issues, and so we just feel that needs to be addressed. So I've given you kind of a quick walk through some of the major parts of the budget, and so now I want to tell you what the difference is here. Let me just say that this year's, the budget that we're proposing for 2017-2018 is $70,857,339. The approved operating budget for this year, 16-17, was $69,472,157. The difference between the two is $1,385,182. That percentage increase is 1.96% more. The Matt has already crafted the default budget, which we have to put together. The 2017-28 default budget is $70,888,120. The proposed administrative budget is $30,781 less than the default. I'm going to pause there and also tell you we're going to shortly go into budget hearing dates, but overall, we basically have from tonight the overview up till about January 17th. By January 17th, we need to have the budget process concluded so that we can pass the budget over to the Budget Committee. So, the summary.
Okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. And now, are there any questions or comments for Marge? Andy?
So I'm recalling that the approved operating budget last year seemed more. You said it was 69,472 was the default. I thought it was higher. I thought it was 70 some.
I did too.
Everything was over 70 million. The
When you add up the
Contracts, maybe?
contracts and everything like that, that's what it came out to be.
because I know we had a lot of angst because we were creeping to 72 million, 73 million, and now now the number is 69.
Yeah,
Is this after the credits back and things like that? Is that the idea?
The contract?
No.
okay. With the warrant articles and everything like everything else, it added up to 72,292,098. This year's budget is 73,708,057. The difference is 1.45.
This is just the
General fund. Yeah.
This is what I always. Sorry, this is just the proposed administrative budget. So I'm not reporting anything that I haven't reported
Yeah.
to you before. What I think you've just raised up is when all of the warrants or whatever got added to it, but that's not the
Because-
same.
Let me clarify further. The general fund operating budget last year was 69,472. To that, you have to add food service. To that, you have to add the federal funds. So food service was 1.3. That brings it up to around 70 million. And then the federal funds was 1.5. And so what you're thinking about is correct. But that's with food service, and Marge is just talking about the general fund budget alone.
Okay, so
right
you're
now.
presenting it a little different than you did last year because, at least the way I'm.
No, I'm presenting it
Okay.
exactly the same.
I'm whatever.
Cinda?
So the operating budget that we saw actually on the ballot was above 70 because it
Because it
incorporated
had
the,
food service, and it had the federal funds.
Okay, got it.
1.5, you have to include those both.
okay,
So
I got
this-
it.
So it was over 70, it was 70 million plus.
Okay. That
And you
makes
added
sense.
the 750, then the 75 for the capital reserve.
Right, okay, makes sense, thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions? The only one that I had was regarding warrant articles, so I know we're way down the road on it. And that is that we're talking about having an emergency fund capital reserve, which I know we didn't discuss tonight, to try to build that up.
Matt, do you know what's currently in it? Because we did it last year, and I think our thought
Yeah, we
was, given what you're facing, that we would just put a hold on that. So I didn't put it forward on purpose, because we're up to, I think, 177, is it?
It's
Or is
around
it-
150, 57, I would
157.
say, because we put in 75,000 this year.
And so it just, again, it's a reserve, you know, to say that it's a lot to bite off, and so we thought we would just pause.
Okay. And as a board, if we feel, because we did very strongly vet those numbers, the three of us at least did, and that with the expectation that we would continue to build it up so you wouldn't be put in a position where things like, we always keep talking about this heat wheel, and if it does fail, we don't have the money to cover it. If bleachers do fail and we can't use them, that's $300,000 to fix it, and we don't have that, so, because that's infrastructure. It's not like insurance deductibles, which are smaller numbers. So I guess that's what we spent probably 45 minutes discussing, just that item alone. So it's just one thing I think we want to consider our responsibility toward that, to make sure we're not putting the district in a position, because we're not asking. And again, I think that's definitely a warrant article. It's got to be a warrant article thing. So the question this board needs to consider as we go forward, it's something that we are the last iteration of this board, 3 of the 5 of us being present, showed a vocal commitment to. So I think that's something we may want to discuss going forward to make sure that we're at least vetting if we don't do it, that we're vetting publicly why we don't, because we've already made the promise to you that we will keep an eye on it. So we want to be fair to you as well.
Yeah. Can I say
Sure.
one thing? I think the thought process in putting this budget together was to give you a budget that included the things that were mandatory,
Mm-hmm.
the heat wheel being one of them.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And then the roofing project that we want to keep maintaining.
Mm-hmm.
The other, and that what that does is it gives you a bare bones budget, which is basically a level services budget of around a 1.96% increase. And it gives you a budget that's lower than the default budget. Now, if you want to, via warrant article, add to that, you can obviously do that via warrant articles, separate warrant articles, because I think that's what we thought was the pleasure of the board when we put this together. Or you can choose to go in a different route if thinking has changed, to add those items or, into the operating budget. The only thing you can't put in the operating budget is if you're thinking about taking $75,000 from surplus and then building up a reserve fund. That has to be a warrant article, but everything else could be put back if you so desire. But right now, you're at 1.96%.
Cinda?
And I think that's a good point, Shannon. I know that I feel like it's important to at least baby steps, whatever it is, to try to build that up, even if it's a little bit, and to what that amount might be, might just determine how we get when we go through the budget and we look at kind of where it's sitting as we go through the process. But I would, for one, would like to see some amount, whatever that amount is for this year. I would like to see it as a warrant presented to the public for their consideration.
And my personal position is that I don't see us changing what we would present in the warrant articles that we've discussed tonight. That would be a 4th. Being the asbestos abatement with the cabinets, paving of the bus loop and at MHS, and then O'Gara Drive being the 3rd that we would put off, actually, because it can fold into a different project. So really there's 2. That fund would be a 3rd in my personal vision. But, to do the emergency fund. Because, again, I just want to make sure that we're, keeping our word.
And then Thornton's roof, right? That would be a warrant. Is that a warrant? No?
No, Thornton's is
That's
infrastructure.
sorry. Okay, yeah, got it.
Well, it's up for debate.
No. I think that's one of the requirements. Sorry. No,
When
that
it
makes
rains
sense.
inside, it's no longer optional. So.
Yeah.
So are there other questions or comments about the budget? Well, the books are here. We will take them after our meeting, bring them home and study them up. And then I'll let you continue with some budget ideas.
Okay, so you have in your packet some proposed school board budget hearing dates, and I want to walk you through those if you'll bring those forward. So on Monday the 19th, we have found success in using a portion of a regularly scheduled board meeting to do hearings. So it would be our intent to have food service and maintenance before you here at Town Hall to go through the budget. And I want to pause there just for a moment, because what we have done in our past is to ask you to provide questions to me about either of those 2 areas. So as you go through the budget, if something comes to mind that you want to have addressed, you would forward that question to me, and then I would pass it off to either David Zeke or Tom Tuso or Matt Chevenel. So we have had in the past a template that's been used to help people to make sure we get the line item and that kind of thing. So tomorrow I'll send that template out for you to use. And what I would ask is if you could possibly feed me your questions by next Monday, which would be the 12th of December. That would give you the week and the weekend. And then I will make the assumption by the end of Monday that day that I have anything that you would ask. Now remember, that does not preclude you from asking questions the night that they're here. It just gives them a chance to do some research if something comes up that you really want more knowledge of. So then we go to Monday, January 2nd, which is the day when we come back after vacation. We're here that night. And you'll see that the upper elementary, technology, library, media, and special services will be here those nights. And again, where we have the board meeting on Monday, December 19th, we'll only be here the remainder of that week, and then people go on vacation. So if you have the opportunity that week of the 19th of December to look at any of those areas and come up with questions, I would like to be able to give them over to the respective director or principal, because when we come back, that's it, the night. Notice the third hearing is on a different night, and so this is where I need to know your schedule if you're able to be here, because we're trying to strive to have all of you present. So it's on Thursday, January 5th of that first week of January, and note that night we need to be at Mastercall Elementary School in the all-purpose room, because this building, the Matthew Thornton room here, is being utilized. So could I just pause and see if you can come that evening, Andy?
That is, according to our calendars, it's a safeguard night. So if safeguard happens, there wouldn't be a school board rep at that meeting. Or Mark.
Is it
We can
change it?
Change it. I just.
No, I appreciate that, and I think there's a meeting coming up, right? So it's great we're doing this right now. Okay, so if that could be postponed, all right, you'd be able. Cindy, are you good? Yeah, Mike. Yeah, you don't know yet. Okay, but we've got some time. We've got some time. So if you can get a feeling for it, that would be good. And Naomi, perfect. All right. And so again, an off night, Tuesday, January 10th. We're back here at Town Hall. And again, you can see that this is a time that if you wanted a department to come back for a second time, some of the bigger budgets you might want more time, or an article discussion, we've put that there, so that it doesn't fall on you the night of the 17th, which is the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day. That's the next board meeting. And so sometimes it makes better sense to just have this here. Also, we don't know about weather. You'll notice that I'm the eternal optimist. I don't even put down the word snow day because I just think we're going to meet. And so, but I am saying if worse came to worse, we've got some outliers here. So are people okay about the 10th, to your knowledge, at this moment? We'll find out. No, time will tell. Okay. I'm just going to put that down right now, and we'll give it due diligence. We've got a little bit of time here to try and look, and I'll go back and look at the calendar. That's the other thing. I had the calendar for this place in front of me at the time, so we'll take a look-see. Okay? Please.
Actually, Michael, before you go far, is that whole week a challenge in that vein? Would Tuesday or Thursday make a difference? Would there be is it the whole week or what?
I can make it via call that week. I cannot. It looks like I'll be in New York that week for training.
Okay, so the whole week. So really, it's not fluid within day to day. So okay,
And, all right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Michael.
So I'm sorry, Andy, I just forgot I had a meeting with Debbie today, and the 5th of January was postponed. It's not going to happen. There won't be a January meeting of Safeguard, and that was just decided today. It's going to be not until February 2nd.
So we're skipping the month altogether.
There is no, yes. So I forgot about that, and now I just remembered when you said it. So there is no conflict.
So with that, we have an idea of schedules. If I know with the 10th, Michael, you said that you'll be traveling that week, so it's it's going to be remote. If Thursday the 5th, if you can get back to Marge on that, copy me on your schedule and what kind of availability, if any, you have, or if you'll be here somewhere else and dialing in, or what works for you. The thing about MES is that it is off-site, so it's more challenging, as you probably remember from our last meeting off-site, dialing you in, because the acoustics were treacherous at best. So I'm not sure even how much you heard of that meeting without seeing it on
Just
TV.
to throw another monkey wrench in, I'll actually be traveling on the 19th, so I need to call in.
Okay. Well, here's easier. I'm not gonna lie.
Gotta love it.
Okay.
Well, that choice will be easy.
So okay.
So this would definitely be a phone.
Okay. So, but you know, with offsite, it might be a little more challenging because we don't have access to the facility. So, we'll talk offline. But if that date presents a problem, definitely let me know. So, other than that, is this amenable to everyone else? We will go with it for now. And we have had it, just to give you an idea of where board members were traveling and could not make it, but they did submit questions that were answered on camera. So it does not afford you the follow-up opportunity, but we would definitely still address your questions if we couldn't get you dialed in. Andy?
We just, bless you, we just need to make sure that the meeting that we have, where we're voting on it, that he has the access to get in, because that's probably the most important, that we have the full quorum there. So like if we decide to vote on the 10th, if we're ready to do that, then we need to make sure that there's acoustic capability. And if not, the 19th, we know we'll be here, I think, right?
The 17th.
The 17th, whatever that Tuesday is, we'll be here. So we know we'll have the ability in that one. So to me, that's the most important. You're right, we all travel and do stuff, but the vote on the budget that we approve is the most important piece, I think, so.
And we would likely do that at the second meeting of January, correct? That's when we'll do our workshop.
I think given what I'm hearing tonight is more than likely it would not be appropriate for the 10th.
Okay.
That we need to hold it that night.
Okay.
The 17th, when you're all together. Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's going to be a moving parts thing, but we'll see what we can do to make the best of it and get the work done. Excellent. So we are on to housekeeping, which is number 7, which is the approval of the November 21st, 2016 minutes. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes made by Naomi? Do I have a second? Seconded by Andy. Are there any edits to the minutes? Seeing none, we'll put the minutes to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries 5-0. On to item number 8, consent agenda. With Mark.
On consent tonight is the following educator resignation. Deborah Manna, guidance counselor at Merrimack High School.
Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Andy?
Will we accept the consent agenda as read?
Second? Seconded by Cindy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries 5-0. On to item number 9, correspondence. Is there any correspondence to come before the board? Michael?
I had multiple people reach out in regards to the field being delayed by 1 year, and also in regards to the school timing for the high school, and I think of primarily the high school, but just start of the school day. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
And I think we were all in receipt of the same track question, or not track, I'm sorry, field question, turf field question, but we were home run since sent the letter. I think we were all copied on the timing for the high school. I also got correspondence from a constituent about the composition of the communications committee and had some questions on that. Andy?
And just tonight before I went, I got a correspondence from a constituent about a panel that was done around food services today that their child was part of. So there's some questions that I'll be having about this later.
Great. Okay. Are there any comments from the board? Cinda?
Oh, just on correspondence still. I would just
Oh,
add
sure.
that we all received correspondence regarding the communications.
Yep, that's the question about the makeup of the communications committee.
Right.
So.
I thought you said I received it, so I just wanted to make it clear that
Oh, yeah,
we all received it.
Yep, we were all on that, so, sorry if I said I meant we. Any comments from the board? Any new business to come before the board? Seeing none, item number 11 is committee reports. Are there any committee reports from the board? Seeing none, item number 12, public comments on agenda items. There was Thanksgiving, so I can see where it would have been quiet. So public comments, we've got nothing. So take a moment to sign the manifest, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Michael. Do I have a second? Seconded by Cinda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0-0. Thank you and good night.